Ladies and gentlemen, we are welcome. I want to welcome you to our webinar this afternoon. We are very fortunate to have with us an amazing expert on AI, a gentleman by the name of Scott Duffy. Scott is an entrepreneur and keynote speaker. He's the founder of AI Mavericks. That's a workforce training company and AI Tools Setup, which is a managed service provider that specializes in setting up, onboarding, and maintaining AI tools for the entrepreneur. Prior to AI Ventures, Scott founded a company called Smart Charter, which was acquired by Richard Branson's Virgin Group, making him a working partner with Richard Branson, which is amazing. He held leadership roles at FoxSports.com, NBC Internet, and CBS Sportsline. These are all some of the top names in the internet world. He started his career working for Tony Robbins. He is listed as a top 10 speaker by entrepreneur.com. He has spoken at the New York Stock Exchange and provided commentary in numerous media outlets, including CNBC, Fox News, and CBS Radio. He has served as a special projects editor at Inc., a VIP contributor at Entrepreneur, and a co host of an amazing top podcast for Microsoft. I think that had something to do with hamburgers, didn't it?
It sure did.
So, yeah, maybe he'll tell us a little bit about it. My ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us and welcome Mr. Scott Duffy.
Thank you so much, Jim. It is always so good to be with you, and I'm really excited about what it is that we're going to talk about today and what we're going to share, and kind of how we're going to introduce, the idea of AI to the people that you work with, to investors, specifically to real estate investors, and my goal today is really kind of threefold. The first thing I want to do is just help demystify AI and ground people in kind of what it is, where we've been with it, where we are today, what's coming next, and how that impacts all of us. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to do is share with you really what things, like basically where do we start and where should we focus our attention today if we're new to AI and we want to use it as a tool to help us to grow our business. And then the third thing I'd like to do is share some examples of how investors are using AI specifically, in the real estate space and how they're leveraging ChatGPT and other tools in order to create better outcomes. So that's my goal today. And I think we should just dig in. What do you say, Jim?
Let's do it.
All right,
Um,
cool. So
I've been, Scott,
go
you
ahead.
go ahead. You take it.
No, I just think, all of us is, for the last 2.5, almost 3 years, it seems that all any of us hear about when we turn on the television, when we go and we read, we go and we read a blog post, when we get on social media, all we hear about is AI. And what I find fascinating is really how it just seems like it came out of nowhere. And so I'd like to step back. You know, the term AI was first used in the 1950s. And what's crazy is it took almost 70 years from the time that AI first started to be worked on until the time ChatGPT launched, when all of us had an opportunity to interact with it. 70 years. Just to compare that to the internet was launched in 1969, and it took 25 years. December of 1994, when the first consumer browser, think of it like today's Chrome or Safari, back then it was the Netscape Navigator, became the first way that all of us could really use the internet. And so again, 25 years for the internet, 70 years for AI. To me, I think that's fascinating. And the question is, so what happened? How did the AI become accessible to all of us? And I'm a non-technical person. And so what I want to do is I just want to give you kind of like a basic understanding of how this happened and how it works. Totally non-technical. I'm probably going to oversimplify some things, but this is really all that you need to know. All you need to know is in the 80s and the 90s, there was a new technology called a neural network that was created. And if you asked a neural network, what is it that you do? It would say this: I understand human language. And that's it. That's all that you need to know. And then several years later, in 2017, a new type of neural network called a transformer was created. And if you ask a transformer, what do you do? It would say this: I understand human language and I can read a book. I can memorize everything as I go along. If you ask me a question, I know exactly where to find the answer. If you ask me to write a story, I can based on what I learned. That's all you need to know. And then later that year, a new type of transformer was created and launched called a large language model. And if you asked a large language model what it did, it would say this: I understand human language. I can read 1 million books at a time, not just one. I can memorize everything as I'm reading it. If you ask me a question, I know exactly where to find the answer. If you ask me to make a video, to write a story, to write a book, to do so many different things, I can based on what I learned. And that's it. And that large language model is the brain that powers ChatGPT and Claude and Grok and all those large language models. So the cool thing was we had this really amazing technology. The problem that we had was we couldn't really use it. And we couldn't use it because we didn't have enough power. We didn't have a chip, a computer chip that really could maximize what these things could do. And so um, I want you to think of it this way. Back then, think of two types of chips. One was called a CPU. It's a central processing unit. And the way it works is in a linear fashion. It's used like in your computer. So think about it this way. You turn on your computer, the screen boots up, you're asked for your password, you log in, and it loads the operating system. It can do one thing at a time in a linear fashion. The other type of computer chip is called a GPU, a graphical processing unit. And here's what's different. A GPU can run multiple things, take multiple actions at once. And here's why that's important. That's important because if I wanted to read one book at a time, a CPU might work. But if I want to read millions of books and watch millions of videos, I need more power. And what happened was the biggest video chip maker in the world, called NVIDIA, took its best video chip, a video game chip, and they decided to leverage what they knew and basically adapt that for AI. And so wrapping all of this up on the history, back in 2022, we had a bunch of things that came together. The first is we had the chip. So now we had the chip that could power this amazing technology. And then a few months later, ChatGPT launched, and we had the software. For the first time, we were able to interact with this cool tech. And then later that month, Microsoft came in and invested a bunch of money in ChatGPT and took all of what it did and integrated it into its applications. So we had the hardware, we had the software, and we had the applications. And that is the history. So where are we today? Where we are today is this, is that we are at the beginning. We are at a time in AI where the foundation is all being set. And what that means is this. What that means is the software programs like the ChatGPTs or large language models, the data centers, the computer chips, all those things, that's where all this money is going right now. But here's what's interesting. What's interesting is this, is that if you take a look, despite all the noise, despite everything that you've heard, if you take a look at who is using AI, here's what you're going to find. That today, just over 1%, that's it, of all businesses in the world pay to use ChatGPT. That's from last month from OpenAI. What we learned last month is this. Only 6.1% of companies in America are using AI, according to Goldman Sachs. And also last month, we learned this. 95%, according to MIT, 95% of corporate AI pilots fail. They didn't deliver value to the company. The reason I bring this up is we're at the beginning. And if you're listening to this now and learning the fundamentals of how to get started and use AI as a tool to make better real estate investments, you are literally ahead of 99% of the companies in the world today. This is your window. This is your opportunity. And that's why Jim wanted to share this information with you today. Jim, if we go to the next slide. The question is, why is it that people are adopting this slowly? Why aren't more people in business, in investing, using these tools? And there's really three reasons. The first is this. Most people that I talk to that run companies, particularly companies that have been successful, or they're investors, and they have a recipe and a formula that's been successful, what happens is they tend to feel a bit of overwhelm. They want to learn, they want to jump in, but they don't know where to start. It's kind of like they're stuck between this fear of missing out and the fear of jumping in. And that overwhelm keeps them from getting started. The second thing that we hear is skepticism. And so what happens is a person is really trying to understand, look, is this real? Does this stuff really work? Am I going to see a real ROI on this tool today? And the challenge right now is outside of some of these bigger AI models like ChatGPT and Grok and Claude and Perplexity. Those are all tools that fundamentally do the same type of thing. Outside of those, a lot of the AI tools just aren't ready for prime time. And so what's happened is people have invested time, they've invested some money, and maybe didn't get the result that they wanted. And so they're a little bit more skeptical. But again, we're early. And the last thing is fear. There's this fear like, what happens if I mess this up? How would I mess it up? How will this impact my bank account? How will this impact my family? And what we're going to talk about today is that it won't. We're going to talk about taking small steps, measured steps, taking small actions to mitigate your risk every step of the way. And the next slide, Jim. So then the question is, where do you start? If you're ready to get started using AI or learning about AI, like, what do you do? Where do you start? And the answer begins with mindset. And I want to share with you a quick story because this story really drove it home. Whenever we go through times of change and transformation, it's like we want to understand what are the common things that people do that tend to get through those periods the most successfully. And in my career, I've had the opportunity to interview literally hundreds of entrepreneurs, CEOs, founders, entertainers, world championship athletes, these incredible people. And I've always asked them this one question, like, what is the difference? What is the difference that makes the difference between the best at anything and everyone else? And my entire career doing this, over 30 years, the answers I get from people would always be different. So for example, if you ask Tony Robbins, what is the difference that makes the difference? What Tony would say is he'd likely say state management. He would say the people that are the best of the best have learned how to control their physical and emotional states no matter what happens in life. So they are able to smooth out that kind of like emotional roller coaster that we go through in business. If you talk to somebody like Sarah Blakely, the youngest self-made female billionaire in the United States at one point, she's the founder of Spanx, she talked about hustle. If you talk to Tony Hawk, he talked about you keep getting up. It didn't matter who I talked to, I got a different result or a different answer. But here's the thing. Beginning in November of 2022, when ChatGPT launched, a crazy thing happened. It didn't matter who I interviewed, who was the best of the best, they all said the same thing. They all had this passion, this insane commitment, this almost like obsession with learning. And here's why. It used to be in our business that things moved relatively slowly. They move linearly. As a business, we could look outside the window, we could see our competition. And then came the internet. And the pace of change went from linear to exponential. And with AI, we've gone from linear to exponential to really incomprehensible. And so what I'm here today to tell you is this. Whatever it is that made you your superhuman power, that thing in business that you could always go back to, that one thing that always like drove it home, That one superpower that you had the day before ChatGPT launched is your baggage today. And that's what these top performers know. So they have this commitment to learning. And I tried to figure out how I could practically apply that to business and to AI. And it reminded me of a story where a few years ago, I had an opportunity to do something with the Lakers and with Phil Jackson. And, Phil Jackson is the only, first of all, he's won more championships, 11 rings, more professional championships than any coach in US sports history. And he's also coached arguably the two best players that have ever played the game, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. So the question that I asked him was the same as everyone else, which is, what is it that makes the difference between number one and number two anything? And his answer was this: Shoshin. Shoshin, Shoshin. That's a Buddhist term, and it means beginner's mind. And here's what he meant. What he meant is, and what he said is that every single day that Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant stepped on the court, it was like the first time they ever played the game. They were so open to new possibility and so open to new ideas, they were able to see these little differences, make these minor distinctions that nobody else was able to make. And what he shared was it's that person that has that beginner's mind that in times of change and transformation always wind up on top. It's the expert. It's the person who's rooted in what always used to work. That's the person that has every disadvantage. And so when it comes to where do we start with AI, the answer is we start with the mindset, this beginner's mind approach. We're going to approach everything that we do in our business as if it's the first time that we ever played the game. The next thing we're going to do with regard to mindset is view AI as a companion. It's not a replacement for you. It's not a replacement for everything that you do. It's a companion. It's an assistant that can help you to do the things that you do better. And finally, we're going to define winning. Our mindset around winning is this: if we can get a 20% improvement in one area, any area that we focus, it's a big win. I think a big mistake that companies make, and we saw this in the MIT report, is this. I think the mistake is people tend to think that when they start using AI, it should change and have this miraculous overnight effect on their business. But we're early, and that's just not the case. And so what we want to do is we want to pick one thing. We want to focus on doing one thing, focus on one area, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute, and define success as a 20% improvement toward a goal. And that's what we're looking for. Jim, next slide. And there's really three things that I would say, if you're getting started, that you need to do today. These are the three most important things that anyone in this very early stage of AI should be learning. And the first is this: you just want to learn how to use one tool. Just start with one tool. And the tool that I recommend that you start with is ChatGPT. Why? Because more people use ChatGPT than any other AI tool in the world every single day. And in addition to ChatGPT having a business arm, it also has become the number one go-to AI tool that people use personally, like to help them with their own lives. It's kind of interesting. ChatGPT launched in November of 2022. In 2023, the number one use case, the number one reason that people use ChatGPT was to write code. In 2024, the number one reason people use ChatGPT was to write code. This year in 2025, the number one reason people use ChatGPT is to be their personal therapist. And so what's interesting about ChatGPT is it's not only a great business tool, it's a great tool for you personally. And also, what you're going to start to see from ChatGPT and its competitors is you're going to start to see the rollout of brand new consumer devices. The idea that we use the phone the way we do, we're probably at the tail end of the phone as we experience it today. And what ChatGPT has hired Apple's top designer, a person who was involved in the iPhone and the iPad and the MacBook Pro. And they just brought him over, and they have begun to make the consumer devices that they're going to be rolling out shortly. And the reason I bring all this up is when you're getting into a new space, there's a new technology, there's change and transformation taking place. We don't want to focus on doing everything. Let's focus on one thing, do it really well, and then we nail that thing, we can move to the next. So let's start with ChatGPT. And what does that mean? That means going to ChatGPT, creating an account. I would recommend signing up for the $20 per month account. It gives you more features. And then learning all of the different things that it can do. And we teach that at AI Mavericks, all the different things that ChatGPT can do for your business. The second thing that we recommend you do is to learn how to prompt. So going to ChatGPT and using that tool is one thing. But what we want to do is develop a new skill. And this is a skill that no one needed to have before ChatGPT launched a couple of years ago. And that's prompting. And what is a prompt? A prompt is basically an instruction that you give to AI. And so when you think of it this way, when when you go to Google, you might type in a search. It's a search engine. It's actually what it's a search engine. And you might say, I'm looking for information on a certain kind of investment. And what will happen is you'll get a bunch of links and results that come up. And you have to go and do the work and piece together an answer that you're looking for. ChatGPT is what you would call an answer engine. ChatGPT will do all of the work for you. And so the reason I bring this up is in order to deliver to you the very best answer possible, we need to talk to it in a certain way. We need to structure our prompt in a certain way. And this is how we do it. Whenever we go into that chat box, we give ChatGPT a role. We say, act as if. So for example, act as if you are the number one investor in mobile home parks and self-storage in the United States. I define the number one investor as the person that has maybe the most property with the highest returns and like the greatest asset value. However you define it, give it a very clear and specific role. Next, give it an instruction. And the instruction could be something like, take a look at the deal that I'm going to upload and just attach a file. Take a look at this deal and tell me, analyze this deal for me. And then what we do is we give it context. And the context could be, here is the framework that I have for determining if a deal is a candidate for me to invest in. And we write all that out. So we've given it a role, we've given it an instruction, and then we've given it context. When we do that, it can deliver an answer that is perfectly tailored to us and what our needs are, and it can do it in less than a fraction of a second. And then finally, the third thing I'd say to do to get started, we're going on ChatGPT and learning how to use that. We're learning how to prompt. Now what I'd say is this, just begin using AI in some really simple ways every single day. So let me just throw out a bunch of examples of ways that you might want to start using AI or using ChatGPT. For example, number one, you may want to have ChatGPT draft emails and letters for you. So you could say, for example, write a really friendly follow-up email to a client who hasn't replied to me in a week. And what you'll do is get a really polished message that comes back in just a few seconds versus taking 5 minutes to do it. You could ask ChatGPT to summarize a long document for you. So you may have a bunch of investment documents or other kinds of documents that come in. And you can simply upload those and you can say, here are meeting notes, proposals, whatever. Summarize all of this in 5 bullets. And that's exactly what it'll do. It'll create for you an instant executive summary, and you're not going to need to read all these pages of text. You could ask ChatGPT to create a PowerPoint for you. So for example, you could take a bunch of notes from a bunch of different places that you have. You could upload an audio. You could upload yourself speaking in a video. And you could say, make a 10-slide outline for a talk that I'm going to do on investing in this certain type of asset class with slides and titles and key points and all of the reference information. And it will do that. in just a fraction of a second. You can brainstorm ideas with ChatGPT. As an investor, I love to do this. So, for example, you might want to say, give me 5 super catchy headlines that I could use for some new email copy or for some social media posts that I'm going to create, some hooks. Um, you could use it to rewrite or improve something that you want to put out there. So, for example, let's say that you have a blog, or let's say you're on Substack, or let's say you need to write a letter to your board, or you need to write a letter to your investors. What you can do is copy and paste what you've done, and you can say, rewrite this to sound more professional, conversational, clear, whatever it is that you're looking for, and it will do that. More ideas. You can plan agendas. I love using it for this use case. You can plan agendas and you can have it summarize meeting notes. So here's what I mean by that. When I have a board meeting, what I do is I outline the things that I want to accomplish in that meeting, and I ask ChatGPT to draw up an agenda for me. And that's what it does. And then I also have ChatGPT email that out to my board members. You could have ChatGPT generate social media posts for you, build checklists and SOPs. And I would say, finally, research. I use ChatGPT to research markets, trends, competition. And so I think that if you just sit down with ChatGPT and you start to play with some of these ideas and just start talking to it and having a conversation with it, you will see instantaneously how powerful this tool is. Now, what's also cool when you start to do all these things with ChatGPT is it will give you an answer. And at the end of the answer, oftentimes it will say, if you'd like me to do that task better in the future, here's how you should phrase what it is that you're asking for. Super cool. So every time you're getting an answer, you can learn how to improve. Jim, if you want to go to the next slide.
Sure. Before we do, Scott, one
Yeah.
of the things that you might want to mention is that you can ask ChatGPT how to use it. And that's been one of the most effective things I have been learned to use ChatGPT. I'll just say, "Hey, Chat, I need to do this. How do I ask you to do it?"
Oh, that's so true, Jim. Like, it's literally that easy. You could go onto ChatGPT. There's a box. It's called a chat box. It looks just like a Google search box. And you can just say, how do I use you? Or you could ask it a question like, if I'm a new user of ChatGPT, tell me 5 things that I should learn how to do and show me how to do those things. And it will serve as a tutor for you. Let me share with you something that I do that I really find helpful that could be a good tip for some of you out there. I have ChatGPT create automated tasks for me. So I go into the chat area, and for example, I have one where, look, I look at AI as nothing more than a tool right now to help me to solve problems in my business. And one of the problems that I've had in one of my businesses is just staying up with the news. So I know a lot of people like myself who, over the last couple of years, subscribe to every AI newsletter out there. And now the first thing, because I want to be proactive, now the first thing they do when they wake up in the morning is open their inbox and delete everything because it's so overwhelming. So what I do is I have gone into the chat box on ChatGPT and I said, I want you to create a task for me. What I want you to do every week is summarize all of the top AI news out there that is a fit or important or will have impact on my target customer. I ask it to teach me a lesson, share a lesson it can teach around each one of those stories, create a social media post that it can create around each one of those stories, and send it to my email at 9 a.m. every Sunday morning. So now, instead of opening all of those things, I open one thing every Sunday, and I'm not only caught up, but I also have all my content for the week. Now, if you create a task and you decide you want to kill it, you don't want it anymore, all you have to do is go back in that little chatbot thing that looks like a Google search bar and say, ChatGPT, show me all the tasks that you're running for me. And then it will just bring them all up. And it will ask, do you want to edit any of them? Do you want to delete any of them? Or do you want to add more? So I absolutely love running tasks. Jim, next slide. So I think what I want to do now is kind of bring it home to, with how Jim has been using AI in his investment business and with all of his investments and practices. And I've seen him share this with the people around him. So the first thing that I saw Jim do was create what's called a custom GPT in ChatGPT. So basically, one tool in ChatGPT called custom GPTs enables you to build custom instructions and then effectively have an assistant, like an AI assistant that gets to know you so well and your business so well. You've uploaded all of the relevant documentation and data, and then you can ask it to perform any task for you. So for example, with deal vetting, Jim created a custom GPT where whenever he gets a new deal now, he takes that deal, he drags it over into the chat box, and he says to please, to vet this deal for me. But what he did when he built this tool is this. What he did was he loaded in his website, all of the marketing documentation he had, all of his SOPs, his criteria for analyzing a deal and determining if it's something that he wants to pursue. He set it up so when it reads that, that deal and takes a look at it, it will analyze it and it creates an instant report for him that shows what's a fit, what's not a fit, and how he should be following up with the sponsor of the deal. So I've seen Jim be able to vet more deals more effectively and get better results as a result of the custom GPT he built. With regard to investor communications, I've also seen him do something really cool. What Jim did is he signed up and created a Delphi clone. A Delphi clone is an AI clone. And basically what it is it's like a digital twin of who you are. You upload all your data, or you hire a team to upload all of your data. And then this clone will have a conversation with anyone that starts to interact with it. Voice, audio, it can have a phone conversation, it can have a text conversation. And so what Jim has done is he came to me and he said, look, I have a lot of people ask me the same questions over and over and over again. I also, during this one period, he had a lot of people trying to contact him on weekends and times where he was out with his family. And he's like, but I always want to be there. So what we did is create this big FAQ sheet of all of the most common questions that Jim gets. We took all of his deal criteria, we took all of these things and loaded it into the clone. And now anyone can go to his website and they can have a conversation with Jim that is in his brand, in his voice, has his tone, in his own unique style, and will answer for him. So what that's done is it's cut down on a lot of those repetitive calls and questions he was asking. And it also enables people not to bother him during certain times because they can get those answers on his website. So deal vetting, investor communications, and reporting. Jim also built a custom GPT that helps him with reporting. So he's able to get real-time financial analysis, recommendations, and reporting, and turn that around really quickly. And what's really cool about, I think, this kind of reporting that he's built is that the way the system, he's designed it with the custom GPT, the AI will take a look at those financial reports and instantly identify things that he needs to be paying attention to. So he's able to identify problems faster, and he's able to get to solutions quicker because the AI is seeing things that most people wouldn't. and it's seeing them quickly. And because of the amount of time it can turn this, you can be running multiple properties through the same GPT, multiple deals through the same GPT, and getting this kind of amazing, amazing result. Next slide. So how do we use AI like a wealth builder? How is he using AI like a wealth builder? A true wealth builder. Number one, the way everything has been set up is it's exceptional at sourcing and qualifying new leads, new deals. Um, that's number one. Number two, Jim has been using AI to conduct due diligence to help him to mitigate risk. So again, when you set up like he has these custom GPTs and start running deals through them, they're helping him to conduct real-time due diligence, point things out to him, provide reports to him so that he can go through really quickly and see where the holes are in a deal. He can also see what's working and emphasize doing more of that. And then finally, what he's built, I think, really helps him to manage deals with AI in ways that have been able to help him, again, just going back to finding and identifying issues quickly so that he can respond super fast and be on top of those things. I know that in the past, when I've invested in real estate, one of the issues that I've had is the amount of time it would take to get reports, to analyze reports, to figure out what was going. Usually we had to send it to an expert who might take a look for us. But now Jim's able to do all of that with the help of AI, and he can do it in a heartbeat. Next slide, Jim. So the next time we're going to meet is October 9th, in just a couple of days, and we're going to go deep. And what I would ask you to do is bring any questions that you have with regard to AI, what it is, where to start, where to place your focus, um, any questions that you have about how to use ChatGPT, how to customize ChatGPT, questions you might have about how to prompt, questions that you might have about how to create or recreate some of these cool tools that Jim is using today as to manage his investments. We're going to be here for that in just a couple of days on October 9th. And you can either give us those questions, submit them live, or you can send them to us in advance. And then I think to wrap, there were three things I really wanted to close with. And the first is this, we are at the very beginning. I shared the data earlier. We are at the very beginning of this transformation that's going to take place in our lives and businesses because of AI. And AI is really the leverage that smart investors are learning how to use today in order to improve their businesses, to enhance their businesses, in order to recreate in some parts their businesses so that they can succeed in the future. The second is everything that we're talking about isn't about tech. You don't need to know the tech. This is really about transformation. This is about how you look at the world today and approach each day with a fresh set of eyes so that you can really see the changes that are taking place in your business and then make the appropriate steps that you need to make in order to train, change, and adapt. And then finally, if you'd like more information on how to bring AI into your business, how to build some of this cool stuff, reach out to us at AI Mavericks. You can find us at AIMavericks.ai. We hold annual conferences that are live and in person. We do a ton of workforce training, and we either go into a company and we teach the employees the fundamentals, or we do virtual trainings. We do a lot of virtual trainings all around the world. And so I invite you to check us out there. You can also send me an email to scott@aimavericks.ai. Scott@aimavericks.ai.
Thank you, Scott. Uh, that was an absolutely wonderful, wonderful presentation. I learned stuff. I mean, I've been working with you now for many years, and I even learned things. So, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. And ladies and gentlemen, again, want to remind you that we're going to be live and taking questions. You can either email Scott with your questions or email me at james@jamesblakemore.com with your questions, and we will put them in the queue to answer on Thursday. Thursday it's 2:30 Central Time, and we always welcome your input. Have no don't ever never worry about emailing Scott or me. If you want to go and talk to my clone, it's jamesblakemore.ai. It's that was, and I tell you what, that was a fascinating exercise of putting that together.
Yeah.
But thank you very much. We appreciate you, Scott. You're an amazing man. You are such a fount of knowledge in this field, and really want to thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate your attendance and your time this afternoon. And so, ladies, have a great day, and goodbye for now.